Mark, was there a main event or turning point that led you to want to follow your path in politics? Was there one specific thing that happened that you went, this is what I need to do? And thank you for...
Oh. Well, I helped my late husband who had it was his hobby. He was a wasp from the main line of Philadelphia, from an old family. And instead of spending time at the Huntington Valley Country Club, he really liked going into the inner city. So he decided to run for an inner city district seat, legislative seat, heavily Democratic. And so we had sold a house and we had made $30,000. And so we didn't have any donors, but we took that $30,000 and invested it in his political campaign in that heavily Democratic district. And it intrigued me, and he lost, but he later went on to become the executive director of Nixon for President, and also was one of the major supporters of Arlen Specter, helped Arlen Specter a lot when he was running. And then we stayed involved, and I was involved in politics because of his work. He had an advertising agency, and as a hobby, he helped various political candidates. And then the time came when he was asked to run, and I said, "May I please?" And that's how it happened. But in becoming a conservative, it was my experience when I was a liberal, voting for John Kennedy, cheering on John Kennedy. Tom was a Democrat. But we're hoping to convert him. And as I said, I taught in a Blackboard Jungle High School. I was an assistant U.S. attorney during the Vietnam War, and I would go into courtrooms packed with protesters. And then I taught, I was an assistant attorney general in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in the Department of Public Welfare. I saw the total collapse of the family and the rising crime and illegitimacy and all the things that we have today multiplied 10 times. And I knew there was something wrong, and I started reading, and I thought the more traditional family mores we're losing them in this country. And the children are the ones who are punished for this. And so I became a conservative based upon reading. Not really, there weren't any conservatives that I knew of in Philadelphia at that time. No intellectual conservatives. That was a long answer, sorry.
No, thank you so much, that was great.
Yes, Jane.
A question for Professor Carty. Thank you so much for writing this book. It's such a fun read because it's like going through history from the female perspective, Faith's perspective, which is remarkable because you learn a little bit about Ronald Reagan, or a lot about Ronald Reagan along the way. What I wondered was, were there any surprises? Were you surprised? What surprises did you have in writing the book?
Well, there's so many surprises, but thank you for your comments. Yeah, I tried to reconstruct the story, and there were many surprises along the way. So I guess to answer your question, the surprises were, even in my 100th or 101st interview, I was still learning more about Faith Whittlesey. I think that was the surprise, is that with all her accomplishments, she didn't boast about a lot of things that other people boasted on her behalf. So that was, I think, for me, what was most rewarding about this is that as I said before, this is a story I think that hasn't been told, and it's just, like you say, it's a story in some ways about the Reagan legacy that hasn't been told. There's a part of the Reagan legacy. There are lessons for today's Republican Party, as you've heard. So I think that was the most rewarding and surprising to me, is that there are parts of the Reagan story that are sort of in parallels to today that haven't been revealed. Thank you.
This is for Ambassador Whittlesey. First of all, congratulations. It's marvelous. In the book, Professor Carty talks about your work in public liaison to reach out to the various groups that form the coalition of the Reagan Democrats. My family were Reagan Democrats. I remember when 16C failed. I was 11 years old and I was sobbing and I ate an entire half gallon of ice cream to console myself. I was a precocious Reaganite. Do you see a parallel now with the attempts of people like Karl Rove, first to marginalize, then co-opt, and then quash the Tea Party? And what do you think of the prospects for people like insurgent candidates like Rand Paul, and where do you see hope for the Republican Party, or should we just declare ourselves Whigs and go home?
That's the most difficult question today. John Smearek is an author himself, a very distinguished author, actually. It's very difficult. I think we can reconstruct the Reagan coalition. The current leadership of the Republican Party rejects any discussion of what were then called social issues. MSNBC bangs away every night so-called war on women, bang, 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 every night. There's no Republican response. It's really the war on women's intelligence, in my view. And of course, we have a large Hispanic population. The demographics of the United States have changed. And in my experience, I live in Florida, and the Hispanic population goes to church, and they're pro-life. And then if the Republican Party doesn't talk about it or explain itself in an intelligent way, not the way it was explained by some of these unfortunate sound bites that some of our candidates uttered during the last campaign, I don't think these new large populations of Hispanics care so much about economic issues. They're simply not so engaged in those issues. Ronald Reagan was popular with Reagan Democrats because he talked about anti-communism and social issues, school prayer and the family. That's what brought him Democrats. If we take the position that those issues are off the table and we're only going to talk about tax rates, forget it. We're going the way of the Whigs. That's my judgment. But the Republican candidates have to be better educated in how to speak about these issues in a way that appeals to people of traditional morality. They're not equipped right now. It was obvious in the last campaign. So.
I was thinking you might say something about the Hispanic community when you were in the Reagan White House, so you would appeal to the.
Yes, I made many trips to Miami when I was in the Reagan White House because they were also anti-communist. And the Puerto Rican community voted overwhelmingly for Ronald Reagan. The Puerto Ricans voted for Ronald Reagan. Were they concerned so much about economic issues? I don't think so. But they were anti-communists, and they believed in what has been, well, the term has been tarnished, family values, but the traditional family and the sanctity of human life. And by the way, there is someone here today whose late husband, Dr. Bernard Nathanson, played an important role in the Reagan White House. Dr. Nathanson was the founder of NARAL, who when he saw his first sonogram, he had done 60,000 abortions here in New York. And after he saw the actual performance of an abortion with a sonogram, he stopped. And he made a film called The Silent Scream. And he came to the Reagan White House and showed the silent scream, and I introduced him. And there were journalists, a lot of journalists in the room. The room was hushed. And we made the news that night, of course. But Adele Nathanson, your husband, was a truly heroic figure. Where are you, Adele? You here? Did she make her?
I give you full credit for that.
Astaire Press. And my question is, why is it that people are so ill-informed on a subject that was so clearly decided about 20 years ago? You know, the science of it has even progressed since then.
Well, the National Republican Party has chosen to remain silent. Fox News does nothing on it, and talk radio virtually nothing. It's the overall judgment of the Karl Rove establishment, I guess, that these subjects are to be deep sixed, and they're losing subjects. Ronald Reagan was told that his subjects were losing subjects, and he knew how to turn lemons into lemonade. And that's what we have to learn. And talk about compassion and children. And just the idea of what's happening in our country now. We have a birth dearth. We have a declining, plunging birth rate. For every Medicare recipient, there used to be 16 workers supporting one recipient. Do you know how many there are today? 1.4. So with our declining birth rates, the system is simply not sustainable. 55 million babies have been aborted since Roe versus Wade. And if those babies had been working and contributing to Social Security, we probably would not have such a significant problem today. The same is true in Europe. Europe is suffering severe financial crisis. They've done the same thing. They contracept and abort their babies. They don't have enough taxpayers. They can't pay their bills. They vote all these lavish welfare programs. They can't pay for them. Japan the same. Look at France. Germany's rich. They say, oh, the Germans will bail us out of everything. No, they don't have enough people paying taxes. And all the wealthy Germans are fleeing to Switzerland. So anyway, it's a problem of the leadership. The Tea Party the Tea Party wants what the Swiss have, small government, basically, and controlled immigration. The Swiss control their immigration, not perfectly, but they do. They have a lot of brainy people coming to Switzerland, and they have small decentralized government, and they don't have a powerful federal government. We once had that in the United States, and that's what the Tea Party wants. So the Tea Party's been demonized, and we get a bigger and bigger government, and our Republicans vote for it all, including wars, which are ruinous, financially ruinous, and have brought us to the verge of bankruptcy ourselves. So we have a lot of rethinking to do, I think.
Any other questions, anyone?
Thank you.
I want to thank you.
They will be signing books now for all of you, if you could form a line near Carol, and both of you will sign the books, okay? Thank you all for coming. It was really a fabulously interesting evening. I hope you all agree.